So, get out your old measuring weights and measures, because apparently the government is engaging in some very good old-fashioned nostalgia. Yes, the news, obviously, that broke, well, yesterday mostly, was that, yes, the government are bringing back imperial weight and measures back for reasons. Um, Needless to say, this is a nothing story. We've covered this before. It's a complete non-starter, and the government trying to bring back imperial weights and measures is completely pointless, because not only is it a false claim that it was, quote, forced on us by the evil EU, this entire metrification started long before we were even in the EU, and the laws for metrification were not, quote, imposed on us by Brussels. These were passed in the House of Commons, and then even passed in the House of Lords, and even received royal assent by the very person that these new introductions are meant to celebrate. So don't get me wrong, it is a story, but it's a complete nothing story to begin with. However, what is a story that has seemed to slip very, very, very much under the radar, surprisingly, and I haven't seen this covered in any UK newspapers. Again, also a bit of nostalgia, because people may or may not remember back when the European Union was becoming a thing and it was sort of slowly building, the UK decided it was going to have its own competitor bloc to the EU. And of course, well, it failed. it lasted all about a year. None of the members wanted to join up to it, because basically it was going to be a bloc and it was going to be led by the UK, and it was going to be the UK's way or the highway. No one else really got a democratic say, like, they do in the EU. Of course, just as in case of, bringing back imperial measurements, looks like we're going to be trying to revive, or should we say create, this new idea of a new bloc that's going to be known as the European Commonwealth. So before we go and start talking about this, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel that way. So before we go into this, unfortunately, this source I really wanted to use, the Italian one. Unfortunately, I read it once and then it ended up behind a paywall. So unfortunately, I can't bring you the original article. And again, the piece we're going through today is going to make reference to that original article. It is very good. I haven't been able to find an alternative source for it, but it's very likely that this story will probably become a thing in the weeks and months. So trust me, we are probably going to hear a lot more about this very, very soon. So what on earth is going on here? So this comes from the AA Europe, or at least I think that's how you say it. Actually, I think this might even be a Turkish news site from what I remember. Yeah, it's got the .tr. Is that a Turkish extension? I can't remember now. But yeah, anyway, so the title is "The UK Wants to Include Ukraine in European Commonwealth Report," saying this new bloc could potentially also be open to Turkey at a later stage, according to the Italian daily Corriere del Sole. Again, that's the original article, but unfortunately, you can't get access to it. Paywalls. Anyway, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is trying to create a new bloc of European nations that would bring together Ukraine, much of Eastern Europe, and Turkey at a later stage, according to Italian media on Friday. The Daily Corriere della Sera named the idea a European Commonwealth and described it as a, quote, a new system of political, economic, and military alliances, an alternative to the European Union. Kind of funny that, because the European Union is not a military alliance. That's NATO. And to sort of join all those things together, a political, economic, and military alliance, is one of the very things that a lot of Brexiteers were terrified of. The idea that British people would be forcefully conscripted into a European army. And yet here you have the very same idea of this thing that they were oh so terrified at doing it. I'm sure we'll get more details later on, of course. But anyway, it continues. The countries in this new bloc would be united by their difference towards Brussels and criticism of Germany's excessive timid response to the Russian aggression in Ukraine, the report suggested. Johnson first floated the idea to the Ukrainian president, Volodymyr Zelensky, when he travelled to the Ukrainian capital on the 9th of April, and his government has since lobbied Kiev hard over the proposal, it noted. I don't know why they want to do this, but it is an attempt to do exactly the same thing Britain tried. I think it was in like the 60s or 70s we tried to create a competing European economic bloc. And again, it failed because no one wanted to join it because it was going to be very much UK led. And to create a political, economic, and military alliance, well, certainly political and economic with the EU, but to add that military alliance to it, remember, one of the reasons the Brexiteers wanted to leave the EU and things that they said was apparently the EU undermined NATO. Again, Europe was not a military alliance. There have been agreements for countries' militaries to work together more, but it's not a military alliance. This is, again, not how the EU works. But now they want to create a bloc that replicates the exact same thing they wanted to leave. But of course, I highly suspect under the same model of one that they tried before and failed on, that it would be UK led. And of course, no one really wants to be that. So anyway, it continues. Britain would, again, as we said before, would be the leader. Again, who wants to be led by the UK? Of the new eurosceptic and anti-Russian alliance, which would extend to Ukraine, Poland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, as well as Turkey, and potentially at a later stage, it also said. Corneo's report was written by one of the correspondents at the European Economic Forum in Davos, based on an anonymous source who were, quote, aware of the talks and were taking place at a high-level meeting in Switzerland. So this could or could not happen. We don't really know if it's a potential non-starter or whatever. I'd say if Johnson seriously comes out of this, then he's got a lot of serious questions to answer. Why on earth are we doing this? And if you think this type of bloc is a good idea, well, one already exists, and you lobbied hard to leave it. In fact, you lobbied hard to leave it on some really serious constraints. Not only that, you argued that we, quote, should be, quote, sovereign in our political decision, but you now want to have a political bloc with all these other, Eastern European countries and Ukraine. Why? How does that affect that sovereignty argument? Again, the arguments for this are completely nonsensical. It's a non-starter. So the idea of even trying to create this bloc is completely and utterly ridiculous. We've done this and tried this before. It fell flat on its face for the exact same reason as was noted in the article, that it was going to be British-led. No one wanted to do that because, again, everyone wanted a more democratic say and preferred the much more European or the EU-style thing where everyone got a say in it and how it was formed. Seems to have been pretty successful, but again, we are trying the old trick. And just as we have seen the rolling out of the imperial measurements as a bit of nostalgia, it seems to be re-rolling out this, tried and failed idea. And it failed back in, I think it was the 60s and 70s we tried it. Why on earth is it going to be any more successful now? It doesn't make sense. We're already in a military alliance called NATO. It seems to be working pretty well at the moment, especially now. As for like an economic and political union, if you want one, why not just rejoin the European Union? That seems pretty successful. And of course, the arguments, of course, for Brexit once again start to fall apart, where even they start to talk or even creating these ideas, because you've got to have systems in place. How's this going to work? What about the so-called precious sovereignty you banged on about for almost since 2016. What happens there? But yeah, a bizarre idea indeed, but not too surprising, to be honest, unfortunately. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button on your way out. And of course, let me know what you think to this new European Economic Commonwealth down below as well. And as always, there are my links to my Patreon page and one donation link down below as well as a link to help subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, we'll see you all next time.